Hey, this is Anthony Cesari with SuccessForYourSongs.com. In this video, we're going to talk about 4 songwriting tips to be aware of before you start writing your songs. And we're going to do this in the form of talking about your songwriting practice plan. And this comes from a chat that I had with creator of Songwriting Planet, Kevin Thomas, where he's got some really good points to think about before you're starting your next song. So take a listen to that here.
So let's start with creating a songwriting practice plan. Writing teaches writing. This is a quote I remember from when I was in Nashville attending some songwriting seminars. I went there for a week one time when I was with Pat Pattison from Berklee College of Music, and we had believe it or not, it was a college. We had a field trip. You know, we went on to Nashville for a field trip for a week, and we were meeting with all these producers and songwriters who were writing hit songs for a lot of famous people and record company and publishing company presidents. And one of the sayings that came up a lot was writing teaches writing. The songwriters really felt that was important. If you just write a lot, you will learn how to write better. And I think that it's really valid. So keep that in mind. If you don't write a lot, if you write a song or two a year, you're going to have trouble really progressing as a songwriter. Anthony, feel free to jump in on any thing you want to add, any of these points.
Yeah, just actually about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just one thing about wanting to write more songs. This is something I've talked about in my newsletter, and I feel like it comes up a lot with songwriters where you make the point that you want to write a lot. That's how you get better at it. But for some reason, it seems like with songwriters specifically, a lot of times some will take this mentality that I don't want to write bad songs. I only want to write a few, but I got to make them all good ones. But you just keep in mind that to get good at something, you got to do it a lot. So the more you write, the better you'll get at it. So don't worry about making mistakes in some songs. You just want to keep writing, keep rewriting, and that's how you'll get good at it. And then you'll be able to write those great songs. So don't worry about having to only write a handful and having them all be great. You'll just be so much better and so much more developed as a writer if you continue to learn and apply what you learn and just keep writing. I mean, it might sound obvious, but I think to a lot of songwriters it's not. So I just want to mention that.
No, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I remember people used to I would know people would start writing a song and they say, oh, I think it's cheesy was the term they would use a lot.
Right.
I think it's too cheesy. So well, it's not. It's just you're just starting out. You have to get to the other side of the cheese. Yeah,
I mean, especially when you're first starting an idea, at that point you should not be afraid to put anything and everything out there. And then later on, you're going to come back and edit and really turn it into a song. But up front, don't be afraid to just. I mean, there's nothing stupid up front. Everything you put out is a valid idea at that point, and then you're just going to edit and rewrite and make it into a song.
That's right. And there's a lot of self-consciousness that comes out first when you first start writing, and just realizing that no matter how stupid you think an idea may be, you can turn any idea into a hit song almost.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on what you do with it, on how you learn to develop it. The next point we have is practicing techniques teaches craft. Now, I feel one of the things, I remember when I first started trying to learn how to write songs, I had a lot of confusion about how you do this, how you do that, and how you make a song sound great. And there wasn't much information out there about how to get better as a songwriter. There was very, very little. And there were a lot of books about lyric writing. A lot of the information was very general. There's very little about the actual music of songwriting. And learning songwriting techniques, I think, is really the key. Techniques that composers use all the time to develop their craft. That's the craft of songwriting. Is the different techniques you use to mold your song. Imagine a kid in a sandbox who's trying to build a sandcastle with his hands, and then you give him one of those castle shapers and one of them little star shapers and a couple plastic shovel and a bucket, and all of a sudden he's able to make something that looks amazing. Well, it's the same way with songwriting. When you add some techniques to your writing practice, you're able to craft your song into something much better. Starting a practice list. Once you have some techniques, and we're going to cover some tonight. You want to have a list of what you need to work on. Sometimes techniques you can just throw them into a song and try and use them, but you're also going to want to practice the new techniques that you learn to get good at them and make them second nature. The same way if you were learning lead guitar, you want to practice your scales so that or different arpeggios and different licks so that you can make them second nature and then plug them into your guitar solos. It's the same thing with songwriting. We have techniques also. They're just not as widely known.
Yeah, if I can add something, Kevin, too, I think it makes it a lot more effective when you're creating practice routines for yourself if you're very specific about them. If you say something like, I'm going to, sit down to write 3 times a week, that's a lot vaguer than saying, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 6 to 8 o'clock, I'm going to be writing a song, because now you're being very specific and you're much more likely to stick to that. So when you do start to create these new routines for what you're going to be practicing, try to be very specific about them. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to stick to them. So just try and be specific when you're coming up with the routines.
And that's great advice. That's great. And then the next point is, when you make a list, you want to categorize your lists into different topics, and we're going to cover a little bit how to do that. We're going to have an example. And then you want to grow your list and keep expanding upon it. And you want to cycle through your list. You're not going to get through everything in one day often, especially as your list grows. If you have 10 different things to practice on there, you're not going to get through all of them in one day. So you cycle through it, and you delete the things you get good at. You don't need to work on a regular basis. They become second nature, and you can apply them to your songs easily. And then you add more. So I think these points, just as a general way to maintain your list of practice techniques, is very helpful.
All right, so hopefully that information helps you out. To subscribe to our YouTube channel, just click this button on your screen. And if you'd like more information from Kevin Thomas, I've got a video from him right below this video, so you can click that link there. Thanks for taking a look at this video, and I will talk to you in the next one. Take care.